podcasting since 2005. This is the King of Podcasts radio network, kingofpodcasts.com.
WrestleMania is going into Vegas with a very weak hand.
Woo! Hey, this is the Nature Boy Ric Flair. And believe it or not, whether you like it or don't like it, learn to love it. Because you have to listen to Wrestling is Real. It is the best thing going today. Woo!
The worldwide leader of podcasting excellence. The King of Podcasts radio network proudly presents The Wrestling is Real podcast, because wrestling needs us.
Welcome to episode 920 of the Wrestling is Real podcast. We're going to go ahead and preview WrestleMania 41 coming up in Las Vegas this weekend with a 2-night card. And of course, we'll be doing post-show coverage here at the Wrestling is Real podcast on both nights. Saturday night and Sunday night, I will be doing post-shows for both. So catch them right here at kingofpodcasts.com. Of course, you can find the show wherever you find podcasts. On the YouTube channel at King of Podcasts and Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Please rate and review the show on those sites if you would. I would really appreciate that. And find a show wherever you go ahead and find podcasts. So YouTube Music, iHeartRadio, among other places. So here's what we got for this week. Now, we can go ahead and go into the WrestleMania 41 card itself, which they have everything set. We can go quickly into the card and just make mention of what they already have set and put together for this weekend. Night 1 will have the triple threat match to be the main event of the card. Roman Reigns, CM Punk, Seth Rollins. Then you have the World Heavyweight title with Gunther and Jey Uso. Women's Championship match with Tiffany Stratton and Charlotte Flair. U.S. Championship with LA Knight and Jacob Fatu. The War Raiders will defend the World Tag Team titles against the New Day. And we'll have Jade Cargill versus Naomi. And then we'll also have Rey Mysterio versus El Grande Americano. Night 2, undisputed WWE Championship match. The main event will be Cody Rhodes and John Cena. The Women's World Championship is a triple threat with Io Sky, Bianca Belair, and Rhea Ripley. Intercontinental titles, a fatal 4-way match with Braun Breaker, Penta, Finn Balor, and Dominic Mysterio. Women's Tag Team title match with Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez versus Bayley and Lyra Valkyria. A Sin City Street fight with Damian Priest and Drew McIntyre. Singles match with AJ Styles and Logan Paul. That's what's set. We don't have to talk about the fact that the matches are going to be good. Are we going to see some good matches this weekend? Absolutely. If you want to just watch wrestling just to watch wrestling as it is, and you don't care if it's predetermined, and you don't care for storylines, you're going to enjoy WrestleMania. That's pretty much it. So the lowest barrier of entry, lowest common denominator fan, your juvenile delusional fan that is diehard WWE fan, they're going to enjoy this pay-per-view. They're going to enjoy the 2 nights. But you know they can only go this route for so long. Because WWE right now, they had some bold comments being made throughout the week. 2 shows in particular we're going to have to go ahead and point out. So Triple H has made the rounds on several different podcasts. Seth Rollins has been out there. Rhea Ripley's out there. Like, they're doing a lot of press. And, of course, they are doing a lot of podcasts. Now, I haven't looked at all the podcasts that I've all been on, but you can see that they've been definitely putting out there. Gunther's been on shows. I don't know if the Usos have been on shows. I don't know if Roman Reigns has been on any shows. But I know that Triple H has been out there. Nick Khan, specifically, also doing shows. But one of the things that's got to be said is that there's 2 interviews in particular that were done. Triple H joining Peter Rosenberg. I don't know what the show was. It's not Cheap Heat, was it? No, I forget what Peter Rosenberg's show is. But it was a podcast hosted by Peter Rosenberg, who is normally on the panel on the premium live event. So he's more or less partially or more or less paid part-time by WWE, right? So he's kind of like embedded in. And then Bill Simmons interviewed Nick Khan. And Bill Simmons has quite a bit of relation because he is involved in the documentary type stuff that WWE's been doing now with A&E and other things like that. So he's embedded in the mix as well. You know, he might not be entrenched, but he is basically contractually bought in by WWE as well. These were friendly podcasts for both. There's not going to be any controversy that comes on here. The hosts were not going to go ahead and get any gotcha questions on these folks. This is not what I was expecting either. But because of these casual style conversations, when you have these hosts that are coming in and they just feel kind of casual and relaxed, and you really start getting some of these guests can be very comfortable. And that's obviously that is the focus of any podcast. King of Podcasts here, I would know. You do want to find the best way to go and get your guests to feel at ease. And you don't want to ask those real gotcha questions, very controversial or a little bit poignant questions that might be a bit more difficult to ask. You wait till the end. It's like what Matt Lauer used to do back in the day on Today's Show, right? It's what you do. Barbara Walters. You do a thing where you just wait to put your spot in and you find a way to craft the question so you can get in there and it comes out pretty well and you make sure you try to get the answer that you want. Or at least get an answer that's going to satisfy the question. Now, Peter Rosenberg's been around for long enough to go and do these interviews. Bill Simmons, he's got a very popular podcast and network doing this as well. So since leaving ESPN, he's been doing just fine. He got out of there. He's doing just fine. He's got a lot of projects. He's busy. So they were under friendly environments for both of them. But they said some things that really tell where this company is going. Now, the card for WrestleMania 41 tells everything because you realize there's a real echo chamber within their company. And we heard a couple of times where AEW was kind of brought into the mix. To me, Vince McMahon didn't really go ahead and go that far into addressing AEW. It's one of those things where you could tell that in the interviews with Triple H and Nick Khan that they had, they addressed the Vince McMahon issue. Because both hosts decided to go ahead and bring him up. That's very clear that the Vince McMahon way of thinking in that company, regardless of where he brought this company and how much of a tight fist did he have on the whole situation, because he did. It's very obvious that he did. This was not some secret to everybody out there. Fans knew about this too. Vince might have had a big stranglehold on the company for the most part, and of course he has his baggage that's come along with him that got him out the door July 2022. And since then, Triple H and Nick Khan have done quite a few things together. Listen, and it's nothing against the fact that Nick Khan I don't have anything wrong with because I've praised Nick Khan. Look, when I saw him coming into the company and what he was doing so far, becoming president of the company, yeah, he's doing a gangbuster's job. I'm actually kind of curious some of his comments about TKO boxing. He wants to go and get boxing back off the ground. Again, I don't know what stars you're going to bring in there, buddy, but I'm interested if you get it back up. I don't know who's going to be out there because the crop of stars that we've had for boxing, you got to build them up. You got to build characters out of those. I don't know if you could do the same thing that UFC does. To kind of resurrect boxing is pretty tough, but the Saudis want to go ahead and have it on board. They want to do other stuff. He obviously, Nick Khan has his connections to Vegas, has connections to sports. His work with CAA, I mean, he's a power broker. And it's very important that what he's done, he has facilitated, and I'm sure he's the architect behind some of the broadcast deals they have in place. The Netflix deal, it looks like Nick Khan's writing all over it. The deal with Peacock, we know that was him. The deal with Fox, we knew it was him. And the transition between Vince to Triple H happened during the time that Fox had the show SmackDown. Now, it wasn't like that SmackDown wasn't doing some good stuff over there for them because when they didn't get the WrestleMania time and the Bloodline was on and rocking right there, that show was doing okay. 2.3, 2.5 million viewers. That was pretty respectable. USA right now, they wish for that. But they're getting 1.5 million viewers right now, roughly. There's not a whole lot we talk about with these wrestling shows, especially TV. What do we talk about that's really going to standing out that we can say is integral to the storylines that lead to the matches? There aren't. If they are, they're kind of weak and vague, and they're in some directions I just don't agree with. Now, the part of disagreeing with some of these storylines is fine, but some of them just have no storyline. There's a lack to it. That's my issue with this. And it's that direction that Triple H has been allowed to go ahead and do. Triple H was going to be aligned with Nick Khan because he wanted to go towards the future. And Triple H, listen, he understands very well. Maybe there was to a point he was going to defend his father-in-law, but there was a point also where the company was going to go a different direction. He's not going to show his loyalty to Vince in a way, but he also wants to be able to kind of keep his spot as to say, well, he's the predecessor to Vince, so he needs to stay on board and play nice with the new regime coming in. All these people that Nick Khan brought in. And the eventual integration of TKO Group Holdings and Ari Emanuel. Once they come in, well, it all changes. And Nick Khan speaks the language. Because otherwise, WWE is still a wrestling company. Nick Khan professionalized this, which is fine. Like, I never had an issue with Nick Khan coming in and really helping to legitimize this company, because he really did make this company now another level of success that Vince wouldn't have made on his own. Like, Vince brought it to a certain threshold, but the mainstream exposure, that mainstream of what they have right now, that's all Nick Khan. The ESPN Sports Center hits, all the things you're getting right now in terms of the press coverage with NBC, Universal, their partners being well utilized. They're doing it all. Rhea Ripley going on Kevin Hart's show, Dom and Liv, I think they were on, was it Hot Ones or Freak? I forget what show they were on. So you see everybody getting themselves on board, embedded in different shows, getting the coverage out there, trying to get the word about WrestleMania. That's a machine right there. The machine for promotion, the machine for live events, the machine for the whole live event mainstream PR machine is at a great level right now. Some of the moves they made in terms of the presentation, in terms of bringing in some integrity into some of the people they brought on board to work on the programming. When it comes to, say, Joe Tessitore, like, that's not a guy you would think would normally go and make his way in and work and WWE or Pat McAfee, because their idea was they wanted to inject more sports-related kind of content into this. And as such, that WWE was going to also create more of a sports atmosphere to make wrestling more of a sport. They want to make it looking like a sport, which is what they've been doing. But, you have, real life characters and real life things about certain stars that make them really popular and interesting and all this. But you're coming in with a crop of talent right now in WWE where they inherited TKO Group Holdings. There's all these stars they've had that have been around for 10 years plus, and they were all billed as characters. And you single-handedly stripped away all those characters. The Bloodline, it worked great. I mean, that was something, I guess, that Paul Heyman, and I don't know who else was really involved in the mix of that storyline. That's fizzled out. In a year, we're not even doing anything Bloodline. Bloodline was the biggest thing for 4 years in this program. Now it's nothing. Roman Reigns is in a nothing match in a triple threat match, of which Paul Heyman is is part of this love triangle. Whatever this is, this convoluted thing. Now, I've been a broken record already about this storyline. It still comes down to the fact that Seth Rollins should have taken on Roman Reigns this year. However they would have gotten to it, because that's really the storyline they should have gone. And scheduled for last year, yes, it should have been Seth Rollins and CM Punk, but they didn't get to that part. Like, if you want to go ahead and Seth Rollins come in and integrate after the bloodlines all split up, okay. But now, and I would have been fine with that. But CM Punk right now in this storyline, I just don't care. And then you have other people that are just being put together just to be put together. Just don't care about that either. But they have put things in together now, and there's not much of a storyline for any of these matches. And if they have one, I don't like it. I just don't like it. So at this moment, we can get into the matches and talk about where they have gone, where they decided not to go into the storylines themselves. But I've gone through the ad nauseum already. I don't know what to tell you about it. It's just like they don't want to go into, they want to talk about a complex history, but it's really like they don't want to go and delve into it. Like the extra work to get there, it's lazy booking. For that match alone, the involvement of Paul Heyman as the conduit here for Reigns and Punk, I don't care about this. at this point, and you're not going to like me for saying this, Paul Heyman, as an authority or as a figure, as an advocate, he's a weaker advocate now than Don Callis is in AEW. Don Callis right now is living up to a level where Paul Heyman should be. Because right now, under the stable that Paul Heyman had, of the stars that he has here, the bloodline and that whole thing fizzling out, and the fact that he's not even part of anything right now, and now he's out of Roman Reigns' loyalty because of all that. Like, the whole thing after Survivor Series and this whole thing with Roman Reigns getting his avenging of the bloodline, well, the bloodline never came back together. Like, after Survivor Series, it's like, what, did we just fizzle? Wasn't much of a story behind that. We've had nothing about that since. Because then we had the draft and everything, and what, not even the draft, we just had some change up where it's like, all right, Jey Uso's over here, Jimmy's over here, Roman's over here, and Jimmy and Roman Reigns really don't mess with each other. And Solo Sikoa doesn't really have anything either because they're off on other things too. It's like, it's just, the whole bloodline storyline just fizzled out. We're not even going to talk about it anymore. No Tongan brothers. They've been out of pocket. Like, rarely. Tama Tonga's out there just to do like a voice. Because now the focus has been Jacob Fatu. And Solo Sikoa, who they put so much time into. I mean, at the moment, as a press time, does it even have a match? We don't know if Randy Orton and Solo Sikoa is supposed to be a match, but that's not been scheduled yet. But now we're at the point where Solo Sikoa has made such a big deal as well, he's not even involved. And unfortunately, you got a couple of horses out there that you know that Triple H would have had been a part of in doing something with Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens, but they're both on the shelf. Broken down, fragile. Well, there you go. So they're not here for this. And now we're stuck with Roman Reigns, CM Punk, Seth Rollins, and I'm like, it's a nothing feud. It's two feuds brought together. We could have done something more. But the storyline they have right now is weak at best. Why does everybody really care about the loyalty for Paul Heyman? He's normally a heel advocate anyway. And honestly, using him as this bargaining chip here for favors and all is a horrible way to use him. Because right now, I mean, what kind of favors does Paul Heyman give? Like, this moment of weakness for him is horrible. Because for years, he was always in a position of strength with Roman Reigns and with Brock Lesnar. Always like that. And then there were certain people he advocated for that just not work out. CM Punk, yeah. During the title reign, absolutely. But then CM Punk took his ball and went home. And then after that, you tried Cesaro, it didn't work either. And that's fine. Okay, didn't work out. Move along. But Roman, it's like Paul Heyman right now, I don't even want to see him on TV. I'd rather see him just get back there and work creative. Like, go back there and fight with Bruce Pritchard on creative. Get some storylines out there. Paul, you're a storyline guy. You got some pull, some stroke in there. Why don't you go back in there and help? Because as far as I'm concerned, with Paul Heyman, I'm not really worried about him being a manager. You're just resorting him back to what he was. This is no different than Paul eating dangerously. Get him the old cell phone, the brick cell phone, right? It's not much different than that. That's where he's brought back down. Like, you've kind of reversed his level right now. Besides the fact he can cut great promos whenever you want. But you've reverted him back. And there's the strengths that Paul Heyman has as a booker, as a storyteller, as a matchmaker. Why can't we get Paul Heyman to do some of that? Instead of wasting him here in this storyline that means nothing. Paul Heyman doesn't need to be in this storyline at all with Roman Reigns, CM Punk, and Seth Rollins. It's just kind of here by default. So I hate the storyline altogether. They're going to have a great match together. We already know that's going to be pretty clear. Gunther Jey Uso, when you listen to Gunther making the point on Ariel Helwani's podcast last week when we played that clip, that it took like the last couple of weeks, we really started feeling some real things coming up now to build up the storyline, because he made the point, like 10 weeks ago we started the storyline, and it went nowhere. And now the last 2 weeks, we finally get a little bit of heat on Gunther, which is good. Gunther got real heat for himself. He's the heel going in. And they basically set everything up with Jey Uso avenging Jimmy's bloody beatdown, and Jey Uso is ready to go ahead and take the belt off of him. And they vaguely brought up the point that Michael Cole was going to bring it up, and then Gunther cut him off. The only time they make the mention of, which would have been so important to put in there as the consequences for Gunther, not just the fact that Jey Uso gets the win, but that Gunther will lose a major title at WrestleMania for the second straight year. And they don't want to focus on that. They clearly don't want to talk about that. But that would make something more important of the match. Where's Ludwig Kaiser when you need him, right? To kind of like adjust things for Gunther to make sure that Gunther does not lose that belt. And then you see Jimmy Uso working with Jey Uso to make sure that Jey is able to go ahead and get the win. And he supports his brother in the victory, right? But we're not going to do that either. You're leaving these to their own. Because you just want Jey Uso to get the winning moment. There's your WrestleMania moment. Jey Uso is going to finally win the world title. In fashion where Gunther has beat him 3 times, and now Gunther's going to go ahead and... I mean, that storyline alone. Gunther's beaten Jey Uso 3 straight times. 4th time he's going to try right now. So Gunther's saying there's no way that Jey Uso can win. And then there's the doubt in his back of his mind because that Gunther lost at WrestleMania last year. And for him to lose another title at WrestleMania, that's going to be sad. That could be very well what they're going to be booking for this Saturday. Tony Stratton and Charlotte Flair. Yeah, the inadvertent, maybe impromptu promos between each other and the fights and stuff. Maybe there's actually some legit animosity between them, which makes the match better. But I still think the fans are going to be pissed off because Charlotte Flair is going to win. They're going to take the belt off of Tiffany Stratton. And unfortunately, it's going to be because Tiffany Stratton, to the detriment of the company, they did not prepare her well for this role. She came in hot, and now she's exposed. She's looked at as green. And that's not a good thing. To have her up to this level now, that's not good. But that's also a testament to NXT. Like, this is a girl that they brought up, and they made a big deal about putting her up there. And she had such a strong gimmick. And that gimmick doesn't mean much now. It's watered down. It's like not even there anymore. And Tiffany Stratton now is just kind of like, whatever kind of momentum that you gave to her, you took it away. Like, you stripped her down to just being an athlete, a gymnast, a former gymnast or whatever. And that's it. And Charlotte Flair, with all her work, you're going to get a crowd response by having Charlotte Flair win that belt. 14-time women's champion. You can see her getting another title, and there you go. Then you go on to the Jacob Fatu and LA Knight. And look, if you want to go and get some young star, the Rocket Pack, and push him to the moon, Jacob Fatu's your guy. I've been saying that for months. I said that back in October. But they haven't done that. Now they're going to finally let him go after the U.S. title. After all this bullshit they had with Fatu dealing with Strowman and some other crap. And obviously, the thing we have where Solo Sikoa is like out of the mix. Listen, Solo Sikoa doesn't have a match. What's the chances of him and Jacob Fatu have an issue? And then all of a sudden, Fatu loses the U.S. title match because of Solo Sikoa or the bloodline itself, this bastard bloodline. And then Fatu and Sikoa become a program. I mean, I get it, but like, you're also just like taking away from Jacob Fatu. Like, what are we doing right here? And LA Knight, here in the U.S. title, it's just here for him there, but he hasn't made much of a difference either. Like, talking about the last year he had last year, and it's meant nothing. As we said, okay, they brought him in the U.S. title, they got him here, and it hasn't mattered. And he drops the belt to Shinsuke, wins it back, and I'm like, LA Knight is just here in this secondary role with a secondary title. He's mid-carderific, and he'll get a crowd pop. But it's not going to matter that Jacob Fatu wins. I don't think it'll make a difference if Jacob Fatu wins this match. I would have preferred, I'm going to say it like this too. Even though we're going to have John Cena now in this mix with Cody Rhodes on Sunday night, I would have preferred Cody Rhodes take on Jacob Fatu for the world title. And continue that bloodline thing, because I would have want Jacob Fatu to run a tear through through this company and through everybody on the roster and become like, well, the bloodline needs to continue and I'm going to run it. So the enforcer takes over. And Solo Sikoa takes a back seat and realizes, you know what? I'm going to let him go. Jacob Fatu's the meal ticket. And let Jacob Fatu run the table and let him go up against Cody. Yeah, I don't know if you have one, but I could have seen a story where Jacob Fatu makes it that level. Just because this company doesn't want to go and recognize that Jacob Fatu was a former champion in MLW, that's fine. Or anywhere else, that's fine. But this point, who else do you have that's got real momentum? Jacob Fatu does. He's the one, and it's by his own. It's not like anybody's done anything for Jacob Fatu to build him up in WWE, okay? It's just the guy's got raw talent. And and I could have told you this back when he first signed. I said, man, he's going to make a big difference. He's going to make an impact. And he did. On his own. With very little help. So, you want to let him be U.S. champion? Give him a run here? Fine with me. I don't care. Doesn't matter. War Raiders New Day. Haven't they fought before? Haven't they fooled around before? Yes. Two worn out teams. War Raiders, I guess they're just happy they're champions now, and they get to be in their NXT gear. And they get to be as close to War Machine as they were before. And that's it. That's all it is. Yeah, you didn't like the Viking gimmick. Fine, I got that. You should have never made that change in the first place. But they also didn't do anything more with them in the first place. War Raiders, I have not cared about since their run in Ring of Honor. They were massive tag team champions. And Hanson and Rowe meant something in Ring of Honor. Not this bullshit here with the whatever they're doing with the war. And the NXT stuff, that's weak. I enjoyed Hanson and Raymond Rowe when they fought each other. Let's not even forget the fact that the tag team and they put them together. In Ring of Honor, Delirious of Care, okay? They book these guys against each other, and they were having a run at it against each other in matches. Until they decided to go ahead and put them together. The World Tag Team titles. In a company that had amazing tag teams. Right? Every time you put together Future Shock with Adam Cole and Kyle O'Reilly, or you put together Caprice Coleman and Cedric Alexander, or you have the Briscoes. You had a lot of great teams over there. And I don't know. I don't know what they're going to do, but okay, fine. They want to have this match. New Day is the whole thing with them and their heel move and this, betraying Big E hasn't mattered. It hasn't moved the needle at all. So people know to boo them and hiss at them. That's it. And there's nothing else to this. What a generic match we get. War Raiders, obvious face. New Day, obvious heels. I don't care who wins this match. But I expect New Day to win. Just might be just like that. Jade Cargill and Naomi. It's really just been Naomi that's been the one that's been the focus here. So they are doing more with her. Again, WWE just doesn't get what to do with Naomi. After the run that TNA gave her with the world title, with the Knockouts title as Trinity, she had a run. She might not have had a Mercedes Moné run or a Jordan Grace run, but Trinity had a significant run in that company. And she was very strong in there. And they put her against everybody. And she was really good. It's a shame he was only there for a year, but hey, for Naomi, she gets a chance to go back to the company, back to her husband. Yeah, I get it. Yeah, go back. So I've always liked Naomi. And they put that tag team together as they did to retcon the fact that Jade was hurt. And they come back in here now. Jade's going to go and go after Naomi. Make this a quick match. Quick and painless, Jade wins. Let's just, seriously, Jade Cargill comes in, make it 2-3 minutes, make it 60 seconds. Jade Cargill knocks out Naomi, done. Let's start building Jade Cargill back up. This cannot be that hard. The woman looks like money. And that's needless to say the fact that they have stars that you don't even need to do that much to go and get them up to the spot. And they should absolutely be put front and center because they look like money. They look like draws. Jade Cargill's would be a draw if you could book her right. Her run at AEW was fantastic. And we got to talk about AEW also because, they broke the Nitro record. They're the longest running prime time 8 to 11 p.m. series ever on TBS or TNT. Which is correct. For some of you that want to go ahead and put WCW Saturday Night, wrong. That show was 6:05 or 7:05 to 8:05. Was not in prime time. Not technically. Because Turner time wasn't into the prime time. Not prime time on Turner was 8:05. And the significance of AEW being able to go ahead and continue forward with Dynamite longer than WCW did with Nitro, there's significance to that, but we'll talk about that shortly. But the fact that Jade Cargill, and I think about with some of these stars in AEW and the runs that they had, the actual work that they got to go and do in the company was actually pretty significant. Because I really enjoyed Jade Cargill's run there. I really enjoyed her run as, the TBS champion. I enjoyed it. I thought she was great. Excellent. And they've dropped the ball on her. So Rey Mysterio and El Grande Americano, and look, I don't mind this too much. People can go ahead and talk about whatever they want about stereotypes and all, but Chad Gable going to this route, I would just prefer he wasn't with American Made. What an anchor of a team to put together. Again, because of how they handled Alpha Academy, which is why I don't understand why that group is still together. There's no leader to that at all. It just doesn't make sense. It's just a group to be a group, but they call them Alpha Academy still. And then Chad Gable has this group now, which has meant nothing either because none of them have won any titles. Just Chad Gable, just another group to push around. That's it. And then he latched on this Mexican luchador gimmick, which that's okay. I don't care about that. You want to make him that? That's fine. I know Rey Mysterio and Chad Gable will have a good match, and I wish that El Grande Americano. I feel like they're doing I really feel like they're doing the El Generico gimmick for Chad Gable. I never really thought about it like that, but I guarantee you, I can see where Sami Zayn probably and Chick could affect it. Yeah, why don't he go into the mask? Chad Gable could do the same kind of stuff that Sami Zayn did 15 years ago. Go El Generico. That's probably where it came from. I wouldn't be surprised by that. I can see El Grande Americano winning. So expect that. That's where I'm looking at right now. I'll go through the rest of the predictions right now for night 2. Real quickly. When it comes to Io Sky, Bianca Belair, Rhea Ripley. So Rhea Ripley has meant nothing. The way they used her as well. Coming back from injury and being just dominant, a powerhouse. Why they have had her screwing around with Liv Morgan this whole time and where it's meant nothing at all. And Liv Morgan's still champion. And still sits back here and it's like, well, she was, and now she's, tag team champions. They just got to think about Liv Morgan for whatever reason. Fine. You do what you want. Io Sky, has she meant anything since she want that title back? I don't think it matters. The real person that needs to get something in here now is Bianca Belair. It's just time to put the belt back on her. WrestleMania has always been her moment. Let her get the trifecta. Let her win the Women's World title once again at WrestleMania. That's who really needs it. I don't know what you can do with. And if you want to have Rhea Ripley and Bianca Belair and go into that afterwards, fine, give me that program. But I don't care anymore about this. I just don't care anymore. Give me Bianca Belair to win the Women's World title. That's what I want. And the IC title, because it's a 4-way here, I could totally see, and I'm going to guess right now, Dominic Mysterio is going to win the IC title. Braun Breaker could break off and he could lose this, but I don't think he'll get pinned. And I don't know if Penta will get pinned. But I'm guessing, because Finn Balor and Dominic Mysterio have been a little bit testy with each other, maybe we'll finally get the breakup of Judgment Day. And what a great way to get to the Judgment Day breakup than by having Dominic Mysterio win the Intercontinental title and pin Finn Balor. Oh, that'd be a great storyline. Oh, that might be good. Break up the Judgment Day. That's a pretty genuine idea. I would love to see that. Let's move forward and progress in storylines, shall we? Progress with factions. We don't need people to kind of stuck in some factions because you don't want to break things up. You just keep factions together just to keep them together. No. Let's go move forward with it, okay? So I like that part too. And then you move along to the women's tag team title match. I don't care. Liv and Raquel, let them win. Bayley and Lyra Valkyria and this, like, by the way, so what is it? Lyra Valkyria is the women's intercontinental champion, and they were already at odds with each other, and now you're going to, like, quickly do this workaround of, like, okay, they did the gauntlet match, they won it, and now you're going to let them go up against Liv and Raquel? No. Liv Morgan, Raquel Rodriguez, let them win. It doesn't matter anyway. It doesn't matter. A Sin City street fight with Damian Priest and Drew McIntyre. And this, except for the fact that Drew McIntyre now has an eye patch, there's nothing else to this. Talk about no story. No story at all with this. We're just going to get the match just to have a match. Now, Logan Paul's gotten the upper hand on AJ Styles. Fine. And AJ Styles, you know, you had him going up last year after WrestleMania going up against Cody Rhodes. Several different times. And now AJ Styles is back to the face, coming back from injury. Like, all right. They want to keep doing something with Logan Paul. They let him be U.S. champion for a while. And it didn't really make much of a difference. It was just the fact that, okay, he got a belt. There's something significant for him. I mean, you should be doing more with Logan Paul. I don't know what you're going to do with him, but, like, you can be doing something more with him. Because at least he's got something to go into saying, doing right now when he goes in the ring. Like, he's getting a response. He's good at promo cutting. His match work is always great. Just do something more with him. Just do something more. If you can do more with him after WrestleMania, that would be nice too. But this is all, you know, the window dressing. This is what everybody's talking about. The juvenile delusional fan base wants to talk about this part. Fine. Go enjoy Monday morning quarterbacking, all this right here. Because at the end of it, WrestleMania, what are we getting out of this that's going to progress storylines? It's going to make us get interest going towards. This is the least interested I've ever been in a WrestleMania in all my life. What a weak build-up to this. Because they chose on purpose not to give storylines. They didn't want to do that. I guess it was just too much work for them. So they chose not to. And I hate it. But this was their choice. They decided to go this route. What are you going to do now? Well, let's delve into what Triple H and Nick Khan have been saying about all this here. We're going to go into some of their clips and what they've been saying. So we'll go into some of this. Now, first of all, Nick Khan was in the Bill Simmons podcast this week, and he spoke at length about AEW talents going to WWE, AEW and other companies buying up talent only to bench them, and also some negative talk about the Mr. McMahon documentary series on Netflix. I never watched that, by the way. I never wanted to get into that and just go things right there, okay? So he talks. So we can go into some of the things that he actually said here, but I won't go into all of this here. I'll take a few things that he actually said. I'll just read them out real quick. So someone to talk about Vince McMahon was talking about with both. Now, Triple H, in the meantime, was speaking on the... Oh, he was on the High Performance Podcast with Peter Rosenberg. So here's what's said right now on WrestlingNews.co. Did the transcript on this, so we're going to talk about that. Said about Vince McMahon, quote, when you learn, especially for mentors, you learn what to do and what not to do. There were things that bothered me about the way he did things. Certain things with his personality, the way he would run things totally different than I would. And we've talked about that before. Even when I was running NXT, he would be like, why are you doing it like that? Because it's working for me, he says. And this is obvious because the NXT style of booking and way he presents television, yes, the NXT style is preeminently presented right now on the main roster. It feels like NXT. It doesn't feel like anybody's getting, there's a higher level of anybody getting up and elevating and becoming a big star overnight. Like the stars that are still on top are the ones that Vince made. And you would think that with Triple H, he has all these NXT stars. What are you doing, bud? You got Shawn Michaels out there going, your best bud out there working these people at NXT. You're not taking him up there. Trick Williams, Roxanne Perez, Jada Parker, Lonnie Jordan, Tony D'Angelo, Joe Gacy, Javion Evans, like all these others. What are you doing with them? You don't want to push them up to the front, to the main roster? You pushed up Braun Breaker, you pushed up Tiffany Stratton. Did you really get much traction off of them? A little bit. Yeah, it came in with some fanfare, but really, have they done anything? They won titles. Have they done anything with those titles? Have they made a bigger name for themselves since? I don't think so. They haven't. I'll just say it like that. They both haven't. They're not any bigger than they were in NXT. I really mean that. They're just like NXT stars now working with the big folks that have been around here for a long time. That's what it feels like. And Triple H explained that Vince was much more controlling, especially as he got older. When I first came in, we started DX, we were just doing our own things. Nobody was scripting anything. We were doing our own thing. Most times we were coming back. He was mad at us and screaming at us. And, well, that's a difference in time because he had Vince Russo back there. He had writers and stuff. And he basically was just oversight. But also things were going so well. And, you know, DX was such a big gimmick. Yeah, they weren't going to lose anything right now. Like, things were just going so well. And what they were getting away with, they could get away with. They can't now. So here's the difference between Triple H and Vince. And it's very obvious when you hear Triple H and you're reading, and what I'm reading right here in the transcript, it's very clear he doesn't want to do what Vince did. But fans like me, we want some of what Vince did. And it's not as if you can't do what you were doing in NXT and incorporate it. That's fine if certain storylines don't have, certain feuds have storylines or don't have storylines. It was like that with Vince before. But when you're talking about there's nothing with the storyline at all, there's something wrong. We decided to go ahead and not script for television, so there's no Kevin Dunn around. That's also wrong. You might, fans, the younger fans especially, and some of you fickle, juvenile, delusional fans out here might be my age or whatever. You might not have liked what Vince McMahon and Kevin Dunn did. But there was method to their madness. It might not have been perfect, but it's better than what it was. Like what Vince McMahon brought and some of the mad genius came some shit. With Kevin Dunn, some of his work, when you're trying to watch the programming, yeah, it's a bit annoying. It would make your headache. But it worked. And shows were timed pretty tight, and they got things done. And for the most part, they did pretty well. You would have the kind of content that you could build up, put together, and post-production could go and whip up like whatever you wanted. Like WrestleMania packages, you could just do anything with them because you'd have so much content to work off of. Even though the shows might lag a bit leading up to them, but they would have stuff to work off of, and you could build a pretty good storyline and really build up matches. We don't have that now. Why? Because Triple H explains. Now all of a sudden, we show up to TV one week and they hand us a script. What is this? It's what Vince wants you to say tonight. What? He doesn't tell us what to say. He wants to start. We'd go into his office. What is this? It's a script. It's what I want you to say. This is terrible. It's not funny. It's not us. I was much newer. We read it a couple of times. We had the argument with him, and it's like, that's what I want you guys to do. Just go do it. And then Sean's crumbling up the paper saying, I ain't saying any of this shit. Threw it at Vince, walked out of the office, and it's like, well, we're getting fired. But there were points that he would become very controlling of things. And yeah, there was a point where we know in the mid to late 2010s, yeah, the scripted promos were too much. There's a point of having control, but there's also a point of micromanaging. It was very clear. Vince McMahon did not want to, when he didn't have a Vince Russo had forever, and he had a team around him that knew what he wanted, had an idea of his vision, and could handle things right, then Vince might be a little more reluctant to go ahead and let people kind of do their thing. But he didn't. And when he got to micromanaging at an older age, yeah, we all knew the problems were there. I talked about it incessantly on this program. Incessantly. Moving along. He was very specific about how he wanted it to be. It's his prerogative. He's the boss. We would all talk about it and be like, it would be better if we did this. Even Pat Patterson would come to me, quote, Vince wants to do this thing and it's so stupid. Let's just do this instead. Pat, I talked to him until I was blue in the face. You go talk to him. Right. So there's the part where people could like kind of, basically give up or take the risk of going in a different direction because like a Pat Patterson, he's got a lot of seniority there, worked with Vince on some of the greatest main events we ever saw. And of course, what a great match finisher, the way he was able to go and book matches. So yeah, no problem. Sometimes you want to go and do something different. And he'd go with it, and yeah, then we're going to take the repercussions after the fact. Fine. So there's that part. Now, Nick Khan also went through the same thing. We'll talk about this here. So he was talking on the Bill Simmons podcast. He made up the point and said that when it comes to the Mr. McMahon documentary that was produced by Netflix, episodes 1 through 5 was all fine. The 6th episode obviously had a lot of allegations in there. Most important, the company was, hey, this is not for us to spike it. That's not what the deal was. And the deal was that was struck with Netflix was prior to me joining the company on a full-time basis. So it's trying to help everyone who's trying to watch it stay calm, and we'll get to this thing, get to the other side of it. Hopefully we are now. So, in a way, I mean, he's not trying to go bash the legacy of what the company did and what Vince did. So there's that part. I understand why he's doing that. But it still comes to the fact that there's not a lot of praise for him now anymore. Like they obviously have him in the rear view mirror. They're not thinking about him, which is fine. I mean, there's the part where I think the direction of the company, without saying Vince's name, you could tell there's a big difference in there too. And that's got to be brought up as well. Let's start getting some clips. First of all, we'll go to Nick Khan and some of the things he said on the Bill Simmons podcast here. We'll take a few things from here and we'll just kind of comment on it. So here we go. Start off here with this.
Arrival. Because like 2 years ago, could make the case. Last year it seemed like no. Now it just seems like you guys are all powerful again, and AEW is not a rival in the same way. Their kind of moment, just I have no dog in the race. I don't really care, but It's just from afar, it seems like their moment came and gone, and they're like just firmly number 2 now.
Okay, before we take Nick Khan's comment, let me explain this as well. So again, Bill Simmons is not completely embedded into the whole fandom thing like we are. Like he's a fan, but he's a casual fan. Now, when Nick Khan is asked here, he's asking about the fact that there are AEW wrestlers that they expect to jump ship to WWE when their contracts expire. They're trying to say that AEW is on a downswing. Look, we're seeing some things that kind of attest that all is well and good in AEW. Now, I'm willing to go admit that the last 6 months have been very tough for this company, right? The booking was not great, but I think that also has to be a testament to the fact that Tony Khan was negotiating. Triple H has a Nick Khan to handle negotiations for broadcasting. Vince, same thing, had to be there for the broadcast negotiations. Triple H didn't have to. He could go and keep working on TV. Triple H is not involved in the major stuff. He's involved in the programming, on the booking of the day-to-day, of the content. But that's his part. Okay. But Vince was much more integrated in other things, just like Tony Khan is. You might not like that. But right now, Tony Khan had a good show at Dynamite tonight. The MGM Grand Hall at Fenway Park. That arena, that venue was awesome. For like old school look. Had a great card tonight. I mean, damn, they really had a very good card. When you look at what they did and what they set up for the night, when it comes to Athena and Mercedes Moné, Owen Hart Cup tournament matches, semifinals. You put Will Ospreay and Konosuke Takeshita. Damn, another good match in there. You were really just putting a lot of things in there, in all of it, right? What was the rest of the card? Let me really quickly just pull up here. So then you had her Syndicate in a tag team title match. Fine. Josh Alexander is the wild card against Hangman Adam Page. And then the trios titles, where you see the Death Riders drop the belts to the Ops, where they did not have Hook accompany, and Joe and Shibata were accompanied by Powerhouse Hobbs. Great. And a great way to finish on a night that they did mention was the 289th episode of Dynamite, which breaks the amount of episodes that Monday Night Nitro had on TNT in their run. Nothing against the fact what Eric Bischoff did, but you know what? Eric Bischoff, he rubbed people the wrong way. He might have had a certain way of handling things when it initially started off working with Turner Broadcasting, but Turner Broadcasting was a much different beast than what Tony Khan deals with right now with Warner Brothers Discovery. because that's a different company altogether. Like, that's a big behemoth of a giant of a company that we have right now for Warner Brothers Discovery, leading to everything else. Just saying. Because in the middle of all that you had Warner Brothers Discovery and the spinoff by AT&T, where Discovery was brought on board in 2022. And AEW survived the merger. That's a major thing to talk about. WCW couldn't do that. They were not able to do that. Remember that. Because when first happened, right, in 2019, AT&T and Warner Media, right, they had that set up. Turner Broadcasting, the original company that was part of what WCW came from, dissolved the year that Dynamite came on the air. And Turner Broadcasting's assets were integrated into Warner's business divisions. Done. So anything that was Turner Broadcasting, that company is gone. You got a full big corporate conglomerate giant. And Tony Khan working with them to get the show on there, prove themselves in a 4-year deal to get renewed another 4 years. And they got more out of the deal. Regardless of what you think about it, they got on max. The company, David Zaslav personally said, we want a Saturday night show. We want a second show for AEW, and they got Collision. And so far, yeah, Collision's okay. It's not so much like Thunder. And Nitro's like, whatever. And the thing is, like, Tony Khan is just, he has moved along with a pretty well done thing. He did have quite a few stars that were WWE stars. And he still has some that are still prominently on there. But look, of the stars that he has right now currently on the card, Mercedes Moné was featured, Jon Moxley, you could say Cesaro, you could say Samoa Joe, you could say Hurt Run Syndicate. And that's it. You can say Athena, I guess, to a point. But what we have right now is, they have stars that have brought in. The companies now continue to expand. They're deciding to go and move into doing more shows in a different light. Like they're doing all in Texas. They just announced they're going to be working London the same weekend they would be doing all in London. They're going to have a show in Glasgow, Scotland. And they're going to have Forbidden Door London. So they're going to do a European tour in August. Great. And then they're going to do Arena Mexico. That's awesome. A Grand Slam Mexico. Fantastic. I saw that. I was like, that's really, really cool. I love that they're going to go into that. Arena Mexico, June 18th. And that's a partnership with CMLL. So doing that sounds awesome. So AEW is just working along, working with other companies, doing the thing. Great. And there's some talk right now. WWE might be kind of partnering up with New Japan because The Rock might buy it. I don't know what's going on with that. It don't matter. But the thing is, AEW's moved on their own trend. And one of the things that WWE fans will never let go. All right. You want to say what you want about Vince McMahon. And when it came to how he runs the main roster, and Triple H, when AEW Dynamite came around, Vince McMahon trusted Triple H. I will continue to say this. He trusted Triple H to say, hey, we want to stop and we're going to try to shut down AEW before it gets started. We want to shut down the momentum. So Vince McMahon, yeah, the competitor that he is, he doesn't want competition. He sees the money coming in from Tony Khan. He's like, and he got some of his stars. Yeah, he wants to go ahead and stop the momentum before it even starts. They're doing some big shows. They did the G1 Supercard. They did All In. And like, yeah, they don't want to have that extra move. I get it. Had a couple of pay-per-views, did okay. Here they come with a weekly TV show. They got the broadcast deal. They're on some good channels. So there's no push the cats. There are no pushovers. They're going to go with it. And now, AW has stayed around where they are on the AW right now with Dynamite. They've done it successfully. Because NXT did not have to move from Tuesday to Wednesday, remember? Keep in mind, NXT has stayed on Tuesday nights, especially even going to the CW, because that's how it was. Let's make sure we get all that clear. NXT, and they tried to throw the kitchen sink to get NXT to beat AEW in the ratings. Oh, she did what, 4 or 5 times? And when they did, what did they do? They put main roster stars on there to do that. And with NXT right now, they're doing the same thing just to go ahead and spike a good rating for that show. But they have to have main roster stars on that show to break 600,000. And that's what they're doing. So they got their base audience, and then they want to go ahead and pick up the audience during ratings time, sweeps, they'll do that. But NXT did not win the war on the Wednesday Night Wars. There's a story that came out from Variety Magazine today. Look, when you got the media rags putting out good commentary about this, well, there's something wrong. Hollywood Reporter put out the story about this. And the way it was written, Tony Maglio writes about it. And I'll tell you what, the way it looks, it doesn't look good. And this guy made a point. The Wednesday Night Wars were in his rearview mirror, and a streaming deal finally in place. Tony Khan takes a victory lap because this was the story about AEW beating Nitro as the longest running primetime TV show, wrestling show on TNT or TBS. So let's go into what Hollywood Reporter talks about this. Because, I mean, I'm going to get back to Nick Khan and all these guys deciding to go ahead and bash at AEW. Fine. Hey, you want to do that? Okay. I don't know if that's a good idea. Vince McMahon did not try to publicly talk about AEW. Not really. He didn't want to recognize them. He didn't want to acknowledge them. The questions are being asked now and being allowed to be asked about AEW. And Triple H and Nick Khan are not afraid to go ahead and make comments about it, or also just take shots back at them. Look, Tony Khan might have made some mistakes in some of his commentary and what he said. Absolutely. Okay. Rookie mistakes. He's a booker. I mean, he got this company without any of the wrestling booking experience before. He's been learning on the job. Let's put it like that. So the story here, they talk about that AEW hasn't gotten there to the 83-week run that Nitro had when they were beating the WWF in the Nielsen TV ratings for 83 weeks. Eric Bischoff will always get that distinction. Took a great gimmick, ran that thing to the ground, and did quite well with a lot of different things that show did. And I don't discredit anything that Eric Bischoff did. There was a good run at WCW that I enjoyed. And AEW is like my WCW now. It's like that. With AEW in its place, it has helped. The one thing I can say that I don't like is the fact that AEW has not been able to do anything with the competition-wise to make WWE change. But then again, WWE is in a different world right now. And their new setup, the new corporate conglomerate they're under, it's just not even, AEW should not even be in the rearview mirror, let alone be even in the same hemisphere as them. Because what WWE is doing right now and what AEW is doing are different models. They're different business models. AEW is working traditional sports entertainment. They're doing the same thing what TNA is doing, what MLW is doing, what NWA is doing, all the others. You go to Mexico, you go to Japan, they got storylines. WWE, clearly, with the way they're booking WrestleMania and the way they're booking, in general, the main roster, it's like a sport. They're taking the house show view to it. They're not booking for television. The television audience is just, they're just happen to be there. They're just happening to watch. That's the way they want it. Because Lee Fitting and all these folks, yeah, they want the ESPN view. So they're not scripting or they're not compartmentalizing and they're not staging and setting up the whole floor plan of how to direct and do the show. They're going to direct the show like it's a live event and things are just happening as they're going along in real time. They're not running it like a stage show where like, okay, cue this person, bring him out. Cue this person, bring him out. Not really. They're doing it like they would for a house show, but not for a TV show. They don't care about the TV part of the show. They don't at all. So Tony Maglio writes a story. Look, you want to go ahead and be all pissy about the fact that he says this here, but he says it. Tony Khan won the far smaller and shorter-lived Wednesday Night Wars. In April 2021, WWE flinched and shifted its minor league programming NXT from Wednesday to Tuesday nights. That's right, because Dynamite was on Tuesday nights. And remember that Tuesday nights were staying alone. Because at first, AEW picked a night that was not going to compete against WWE at all. Tony Khan talked to the Hollywood Reporter. He says, it's amazing to me. It's the manifestation of a lifelong pro wrestling fanatic who not only consumed WCW from age 8, but preferred it to the mighty WWF for the bulk of the next decade. Now, Tony Maglio is absolutely right, and I'm gonna agree with him here. For all intents and purposes, AEW is WCW reincarnate. And its founder has had multiple reasons to run the ropes and victory laps lately. Not only did he extend the Turner deal, he expanded the streaming, and the viewership of TBS and TNT's AEW audience has not at all been cannibalized by streaming. Not that even Khan has the full picture as to how people are watching his shows. Warner Bros. Discovery keeps its back streaming data close to the vest, Khan is saying. But he still hears that AEW Dynamite is one of the top shows on Max. We heard from BJ Bethel, SES Scoops, saying that roughly 500,000 viewers are still watching over Max over on AEW on Max. So that's where the rebuilding audience has gone. They did go over to streaming. He goes on to say here, Tony Maglio, that perhaps not the part where it took 5 years to make it there, where cord cutters could finally consume AEW. WWE has been streaming since 2014 on the WWE Network, now part of Peacock. Raw is a Netflix original, and outside the U.S., all televised programming is now on Netflix. A complete rebuild of the Max platform that launched in May 2023 made live sports on Max possible, or at least tolerable. And that's the part that AEW was waiting for, that Max wasn't set up for live sports. Now it is. It's been tested. So AEW can go on there, they can put all their content up there, and all this live programming can also run pretty smoothly. Plus, remember, the expansion of the media rights deal also made Max the destination for AEW pay-per-view events, and now they're doing pay-per-views on Amazon Prime Video. They're doing great deals. This is all good. They're not having to worry about Fight TV and Triller necessarily to get their pay-per-views out there. Now they got some pretty big heavy hitters. Max, Amazon Prime for the pay-per-views, Max for all their content. That's pretty damn good for them. And they've also kind of consolidated all their content. No more Rampage, no Dark Elevation. They're just doing these shows. And they're working on it. And they do some other things also for TBS and TNT in terms of like the YouTube and social media programming, which is fine. And at the moment, Khan believes he has found the sweet spot when it comes to pay-per-views, doing 9 per year. He could see going up to 10. And meanwhile, WWE is doing 17 of what it now bills as premium live events. Khan credits David Zaslav, the CEO of Warner Bros. Discovery, for much of AEW's growth. He took interest in AEW from the very beginning, and he's given them great opportunities to grow, with the addition of Saturday Night Collision on TNT. That was Zaslav's idea. Tony Khan says, they've been so good to us, I want to stay here for life. I want to be on TNT and TBS forever. And Max, presumably. Yeah, why not? It's a good home. They like wrestling. They are fans of the product. They don't get the kind of stigma that WCW had. The company just moved along with it. They see them as important. And obviously when it comes to all the changes that Warner Brothers Discovery were going on with their own sports programming and their live content, they lost the NBA. And who knows what they were going to do in some kind of sea changes to get the ship right. But they decided to stick with AEW after all the things that happened with the NBA. They stuck with it. That's great. That's a good broadcast partner with all the capabilities that you need for linear and streaming content. They got it. They are in a good position to continue to succeed and grow in the same way that WWE has their own level, which is more exponentially like 10, 20 times bigger than what AEW is. But again, 50 years of head time versus AEW has only been around for, it'll be 7 years in October as a full weekly company, as a promotion like this, full-fledged. We could go ahead and nitpick about some of the stars they've had in and have gone on to WWE right now. And look, you want to talk about some of the stars they've taken over there now as of late? I think it's too early to go and see anything really important about what Ethan Page or Ricky Starks or Shawn Spears or Lucha Brothers and what they're going to contribute and how they're going to really be a part of the company and what they're going to do. Not much to say about them yet. And the fact that NXT has had, champions with Ethan Page and Ricky Starks right now, okay, fine. But I don't think it's made much of a move the needle for them in NXT. Because if they did, Triple H still has a stigma of like, well, I think he did learn something from Vince. He's like, he doesn't see AEW as equal competition. So that's why, for the most part, AEW stars have only gone to NXT and not the main roster. Except for a couple of select. That's Penta, Ray Phoenix, and, Cody Rhodes. That's it. And that's fine if you want to do that. But I think they've done I think what AEW has done with certain stars, they've done a pretty good job. Like, you got a pretty good nucleus of stars that that are young and have been down there for a long time. And I think they've done a pretty good job with. You think of MJF. Actually, I like the stuff he's doing with the Hurt Business right now. The Hurt Syndicate. I love all that stuff. Adam Page, they've been doing a great job with him. I think I've really enjoyed all the stuff he worked with Swerve Strickland. Now they got him in issues with the Owen Hart Cup being in the forefront for him in the finals. And now Kyle Fletcher's going after him. Got it. Swerve Strickland being in the mix as well. Who knows where they're going to put him coming up and dealing with the Death Riders. When you look at until Hook got hurt, the things with the ops, they're working with him, trying to get other stars to work with him and kind of just continue to build up and mentor him. The Don Callis filming is actually quite an interesting fold where you see, because I think Kyle Fletcher and Konosuke Takeshita together in that group have really made a big name for themselves. I think they've grown a lot in that group, and they really have built characters for them. The Alpha and the Protostar, I like it. Like, Don Callis is doing great work. And by the way, that guy, as a nucleus for that, because of the fact that those stars are not necessarily like big time characters, the fact that they're under the Don Callis family banner makes the biggest difference. And Don Callis just gets all the heat, which is exactly what you do when you're not building separate characters. You just have a stable. So that's the stable he's got. It works. I always like the idea. I think Don Callis family's got a good point right now. What we're doing with them right now is good. You take the Herson to get some older wrestlers when people were complaining about Bobby Lashley and Shelton Benjamin, both in their like late 40s coming up to 50, right? And they're just as over as anybody else. Hey, we hurt people. You got everybody talking about it. Nobody's saying much about the fact that they're out there. I think they've done a pretty good job building up FTR over the years. Then with the Young Bucks and what they've done with them as well, it's been pretty good. And the thing is that they're not taking up that many WWE stars lately. You notice that too. Because WWE stars, they have been like dropping some. They've been letting some go. They haven't been picked up. The funny is, more WWE stars are being picked up by other companies, either TNA or MLW. MLW got now Baron Corbin and Dijak and Matt Riddle now with their world title. I mean, that company's taking up WWE stars, but that's Court Bauer, of course. That's not a bad idea if you can get that. But some of those stars are not going to AEW. Like, the part is that Tony Khan's not going that route of like where Eric Bischoff's like, well, we're going to pick off WWE's roster. Because WWE's roster right now, you could take some of them and do something with it. But I think there's just something said about what they're doing with some of the stars they have. Chris Jericho's had another run of his career in AEW, and I think he's done a pretty good job over there with what he's done. I've enjoyed it. The Learning Tree stuff, yeah, it's been a little bit much, but I've enjoyed so far. I think he's done a good run of what he's done, helping a lot of stars in there, but he's been doing a lot of help with enhancement talent. Getting some stars over, helping MJF, helping Orange Cassidy, like he's done it. Adam Copeland, we're still, the word's out. I think Christian Cage and the Patriarchy has been fun. Nick Wayne is moving himself up, moving more. Like, he's in the Super Juniors coming up for the New Japan series, the Super Juniors tournament. That's great. And Nick Wayne, again, young guy, he's got a lot of work. He's got a lot of time to continue to be building up and being bigger and better. You got stars that have been out there that have been like, just mainstays, and I'm glad we don't see them oversaturated with Darby Allin and Orange Cassidy. Yeah, I like that. You don't see a lot of Jack Perry lately? That's okay. But they have a lot of other stars that keep coming in. Okada's been, I've enjoyed, but yeah, they haven't done much with him. But it's like more about where he's been working also kind of ambassadorially, with that Continental title, working in other organizations, defending that belt. Mercedes Moné, I love the run she's having right now. I love it because I think it was good to go and see that she's not going to be shedding the Sasha Banks character forever. I love the character there, but I love what she's doing right now. I like how she's working together with like Harley Cameron and working together where she's the one that said to Harley Cameron, hey, make the puppet and do that whole thing with that. That's funny stuff. That's great. Tony Storm has been fantastic in this company. Like, I mean, how many times do I have to go and praise Tony Storm and how well she's done at AEW? I love it. I love the gimmick. I'm not tired of it. Keep going. It's wonderful. And I think about the fact of, like, Swerve Strickland's been booked very well. I mean, Court Bauer saw the talent and saw the promise in Shane Strickland years ago. And the fact that he was not under a mask like he was in Neutral Underground, his kill shot. And Swerve Strickland right now, at a great level. Like, I still see him getting to be a world champion again. I like what they've done with him a lot. I think something to be said about the pairing with Prince Nana has also worked really well. The whole embassy thing, and you just break off, is like, no, just leave Swerve with Prince Nana, and that's it. And it's worked. I've enjoyed it a lot. It's amazing how some of those Ring of Honor talents worked out so well. We haven't talked much about the fact that Adam Cole's now TC champion. We got to see those out there. I guess that's more him going to be on Collision. We got the Paragon now splitting off with the Undisputed Kingdom. That's fine. I'll work with that. The Adam Cole stuff with MJF was fantastic. But the injuries have set back for him. That's unfortunate. Britt Baker was built into such a big star. Unfortunately, she had injuries that also hurt her. But also they just took the gas off her and just like, all right, something happened where she's just not that top star anymore. And that's a shame. But a lot of things going on there where there's been some backstage stuff. Again, it's not without some mistakes and not without some things. Tony Khan should have never brought CM Punk in. But you're damned if you did, damned if you don't. Because CM Punk did help somewhat. And I thought CM Punk had a pretty good run in that company. Did I need to see him in WWE again? No. I have not cared about his run at all coming out of that company. It's just hypocritical at best. So let's just go make sure to take everything back you said on the Colt Cabana podcast. Just take that all away and completely say, well, all the stuff I said about them, we're going to wipe the slate clean. We're going to forgive. Forgive and forget. For the money. It's for the money. Because CM Punk hasn't really done much for me. He's still over because the fans want him over. That's it. Has he done anything in the matches at all? No. And they want to book him as like he's the same guy from 15 years ago. No, he's not. No, not at all. Their choice. So AEW is on their own lane, doing their own thing. But WWE people obviously hold a grudge. Let's take case in point. The grudge that was being talked about when it comes to Tony Khan making an offhanded comment about being in Connecticut. And I forget how long ago that was. But yes, Tony Khan said it. And Nick Khan was the focus of the promo. But what happens instead is that he wants to go ahead and make his shot and whatever. Well, we'll get back to that in a minute. I'll get back to that in a little bit. But let's get back to Nick Khan real quick. Talk about AEW and where they're going with it. Because I went on that whole tangent. Let's just go back full circle. Back to Nick Khan actually commenting about the AEW situation and their perception in the WWE about them.
Well, look, we're always the underdog at WWE. We always feel that people underestimate us, that we're looked down upon, and we like it that way. Like, bet against us. We prefer that and allow us to show you what we can do.
Short our stock. Go ahead.
Yeah. I don't know about that one.
Yeah. You can literally do it. Go ahead. Bet against us.
Bet against us. If you look at the stock price now, it's far in excess of what it was when we all started together 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And, we're quite proud of that. And at the same time, we got to keep, re-earning our keep on a daily basis here.
So the point he makes about the fact that AEW might have been at a different level and he wants to call themselves the underdog. I mean, you can understand that entrepreneurial, that business type of mindset of you can't act like you're the biggest dog in the fight. You have to always feel like you're second best. You got a chip on his shoulder. So that mindset, that attitude, yeah, that works for Nick Khan, and I understand why in the business world for him and the deals he has to make, that mindset has worked for really well for him. So I think that's just his mindset, and he's just kind of attaching it to the WWE because he is the president. So from what his mindset's going to be, is going to be passed on down. That's where he comes from with that. Then there's the part about when he talks about Cody Rhodes making his run, which was really the part that kind of just takes AEW and puts them down in a corner when he says that the WWE is an underdog, but this is like very contradictory to that.
Cody, back to Cody. He leaves. He doesn't like the Stardust thing. He thinks he can do much more than that. He leaves. He hits the indie circuit. So whatever he was making at WWE at that time, he left that guaranteed money to go on a night-by-night basis. He took a full bet on himself. He started part of another, league. And then you sort of saw him fade out over there.
All right. Cody Rhodes was making good money. Whether he was working for Ring of Honor, he went to New Japan. Yeah. For him to not have the guaranteed money, sure. But that's a testament to Cody Rhodes for the fact that I actually like the fact that he made it back into this company to be champion because he had a chip on his shoulder. Some of the best champions we've had that have come into WWE were the ones that had chips on their shoulder make their way back in. Bobby Lashley is a great example. Drew McIntyre is a great example. Because they were not given the good run, and they were made to feel inferior, so they left, came back better. CM Punk never did that. CM Punk never came back better than he was. CM Punk was at his peak, and then all the shit that happened to him, he just left. But that's a little stars that are in here. Now he says that Cody Rhodes was being faded out. I disagree with that. I just thought the fact that where Cody Rhodes, in his own words, he talks about the fact that he wasn't worried about being champion in AEW. He puts it a stipulation in a storyline to where he loses a match, he can never be world champion. Cody Rhodes wasn't worried about that part. He was worried about building a revolution so there would be a second promotion that would go up head to head with the WWE, and he did. He was part of that. But he wasn't going to be there for the project altogether because Tony Khan took it from there, and the whole EVP model phased away. So Young Bucks were not as poignant or as focused as they were, or really directly involved as they once were. Kenny Omega wasn't either. And Tony Khan took the spot and he ran with it. And now it's where we are now. So that's why Cody Rhodes isn't there. That's okay. Kind of live with the fact that he decided to go and move. My thing was that if Cody Rhodes is going to move over, let's make the point here. Nick Khan says, you sort of see him fade out over there. It's like when we talked about. You're telling me that Cody Rhodes, if he was going anywhere else, if he is not integral into building up AEW as it does, you're telling me they're not going to make this particular star become your world champion? You don't think that what he did in AEW and what his part of being involved into getting that company up and off the ground to get in contact with Tony Khan, to get everything being put together, to get the right partners in there, to do this? Cody Rhodes was the nucleus to start this off. Let's not forget, even when he did hit the throne of Triple H, that whole deal in AEW, he was still one of the biggest names they had over there. His interest is not much different than what it was in AEW in the first place. Make that clear too. Still in American Nightmare, same gimmick. He built that outside of the company. He got to bring that into the company. And Cody Rhodes is now their top star. He's their top draw. He's their world champion. So for Nick Khan to kind of throw Cody Rhodes under the bus, like his work at AEW was very insignificant, it's not fair.
Yeah, and it's something that we talked about at WWE. It was like, well, this is interesting. It used to be, hey, this is about the wrestlers. This is about empowering the wrestlers. This is Cody's one of the co-founders. And then that narrative shifted. And that's when we decided, when we knew contractually we could make the call, to make the call and say, hey, why don't we get together and have a conversation? The deal was done in minutes, and boom, he returned WrestleMania 2022 at AT&T Stadium just 3 years ago.
Right.
And
The way they want to kind of, revisionist history, as always in WWE style, that's what they always do. Fine. But I'm telling you, the way that Cody Rhodes came back, they've done a pretty good job of booking him. If there's anybody who's been booked right, it's because he did the work himself coming into the company. WWE has done nothing but continue to keep Cody Rhodes at a certain level of main event, because he built that main event level on his own outside of the company, without the company's help. What would have served Cody Rhodes to come back to the company and be mid-card again? Which the company could have very well done. You're telling me there was not any kind of assurance that Cody Rhodes didn't think like, well, if I come back to this company and sign a contract, I'm leaving the company I'm a part of, building the legacy of that. And you're telling me that I'm going to just drop that just to go back to mid-card status and WWE again for the guaranteed money? Why? He was doing just fine in AEW, but the contract was done. That whole story about him finishing the story about his daddy, yeah, I think that plays quite a bit into it. Plus, I think there was a chip on his shoulder. He wanted to prove Vince wrong. He wanted to prove that company wrong. And in 2012, when he decided to leave, yeah, I don't like what I was being done to do. Like, you're not going to give me a chance. You're going to keep me in this ceiling right now until I do something different about it. Because he knows, just like Vince does. Sometimes, if Vince doesn't see you as a certain higher level, then you need to go somewhere else. But that's because there was actually a hierarchy that Vince McMahon created, where there were main event stars and all. Triple H is the coach's type of player's coach. So everybody's almost like in the middle. Like the people that are at the main event right now, they inherited that spot from Vince. And at this moment, I don't know anybody right now that you have in some of these main event title pictures that could be easily replaced. When you look at the card at WrestleMania right now, who's in all these title matches? And all these stars have been around for a long time. You got to ask yourself, who are the ones that are going to be getting to replace them coming up? You don't see enhancement talent. You don't see any stars doing work where like a veteran star is going up against a younger star. And as they've done it, hasn't really done much, right? Not at all. If you look at the age of the stars that they have right now on the men's side and where they are in the title picture, yeah, there's a certain level of age and a certain level of experience they got to have to be where they are. And Triple H has nothing to do with them. Triple H had nothing to do to help elevate or improve or to shine the star of any of these main eventers higher than they already were. They're basically the same level. And some of them might have gotten their shine a little bit dustied up. Not as shiny as it was. And then there's the dismissiveness of Nick Khan that says, well, in terms of the other wrestling promotional companies, they have a lot of talented wrestlers and we're happy about that. When contractually they are available to talk and have conversations with, assume a number of them will come over. Nothing but respect to the father who finances it and owns the Jaguars and all those other things. Complete dismission. The dismissiveness on Tony Khan. Right? To the father who finances it and owns the Jaguars and all those other things. Yeah, so Tony Khan being thrown under the bus. Fine. And that's where, Nick Khan is coming about Stanford, Connecticut and used the Khan thing with Nick. Fine. So here's his jab back. Okay. I mean, it's whatever. It don't matter. So you have that. And then we got Triple H's interview. And I know we're going to wrap things up because I've been ready at this right now for a while. We're already at an hour and a half. And I mean, I can't help it, man. I just had a lot to say. But I got to get this in now before we get to WrestleMania because there's just too much to go on. So anyway, let's go and finish this up. Here we go. Triple H talking on the High Performance Podcast with Peter Rosenberg. Peter Rosenberg's really changed a lot, by the way, in his look. Oh my goodness. Like I can't even recognize him anymore. So Triple H comments about the dirt sheets and the fans. because his echo chamber is very important to him.
It ruins it for people. The world was so much better when nobody knew, and you just watched it. And now when you they go out and they try to ruin the surprise, and I get it, that's their business, and they try to tell you the shit that's going on. You just ruin it for people. The business that feeds you, you're now ruining it for people and lessening their enjoyment of it to a large degree because you're telling them all the shit, right or wrong, that is going to happen. The biggest thing I see right now on the internet is people thinking, oh, and then they're going to do this. Yeah, no, we're not. You know what I mean? And then The Rock's going to show up, and he's going to do this, and he's going to have the greatest match with this guy of all time. Well, except for his movie schedule, which doesn't permit him from doing anything in this time.
But I have to say, among the great things you've done as an executive, something happened. The clamps have been put down. Stuff is not getting out the way it was. There was a period where it was bad. It used to drive me insane.
Yeah, we try, and there's still where I'm like, did we talk about something, and the next day I see it, I'm like, what the how? Who? Like, I want to smack someone. Like, how did this get out today? There are some that I see that I realize, okay, that's accurate, but they're just guessing. Right? There's 5 different ways they could have gone, and by next week it'll be something else. The memo that came out that said Drew McIntyre was going to win the Elimination Chamber, and now everybody believes that that's like, okay, great. Yeah. But setting yourself up for unbelievable expectations. I think about it when when you
by the way, Peter Rosenberg, man, you got neutered or something like that. What happened to him? Like all suit and tie and like all like trimmed up like that. I don't understand that part. Like just it's whatever. So anyway, I'm going to take that part where Nick Khan says the whole shot about Tony Khan. You should go actually hear it in context. So here it is.
In terms of the other wrestling promotional company, they have a lot of talented wrestlers, and we're happy about that. When contractually, they're available to be, talked to and have conversations with, assume a number of them will come over. And nothing but respect for the father who
that was way too nice.
Finances it and owns the Jaguars and all those other things.
That was very pleasant. Look at you.
That's it.
You're so magnanimous.
I'm 50 now, so different than when we were much younger. Yes.
Well, your biggest issue is sometimes you don't want too much talent because you only have so many spots to put people.
Well, and they also have too much talent where they're not doing much of with. It's whatever. But anyway, that was the actual comment from Nick Khan saying about that. And then Triple H decides to go and go after the juvenile delusional fan base that is supporting his product and says this.
This will sound defensive. Every critic that is out there, I wish I could tell people, off being a critic. Be a fan. Go watch this and be a fan. If I tell you go to the movies and watch this movie, I saw it's really good, and you just go to the movie as a fan, you watch the movie, you have one opinion. If I tell you, hey, go see this movie, but can you give me a 1-page detail, like things on what you liked, what you didn't like, and if it worked for you or didn't work for you. You watch it totally differently. Right? You watch the product totally differently. It ruins it for people.
So that's the echo chamber. That's talking the quiet part out loud. Triple H is saying he doesn't want the kind of the loyalists out there to go ahead and make any comments about the product, and he doesn't want the social media people to go ahead and start being vocal if the product's not doing good, because we're very entrenched and dedicated, and we are so big of fans of the product, but yet he doesn't want to listen to them. And it's very clear when he says that. Yeah, be a fan. He wants the fans that are not going to ruffle feathers. Because he wants to basically make it where his echo chamber right now, he doesn't want to hear what social media says. He'll use social media as he wants it. He wants those fans that are on Twitch or whatever, the Santa Zaps, the Minervas, all these other people. He wants the reactionary ones that will like play along. Some of them maybe are not so critical about it, but like if they can find those fans that they're all doing like the split screen, here's the PLE, and they're doing the commentary as it happens. Yeah, they want those people on social media. Of course, they don't want the dirt sheets. They don't want the other podcasters or people like me. They don't want us to be involved in that. They don't want us to have that big of a platform or that big of a bully pulpit or a soapbox or a megaphone. They don't want that. Triple H is even saying that. Why not? They're Triple H. Because we might say some things that maybe will show that maybe there's some inferiority in what you're doing and what your booking style is. And maybe the fact that you don't want to do things the way Vince did, maybe you're wrong about that. Maybe you're just wrong a little bit. Because I think you are. And with that said, that is everything I wanted to cover tonight. I did not expect to go 90 minutes, but you know what? We had a lot of ground to cover. A lot, and I got it all in. And it was important to talk all about this. And I'll close out with this, where there was some comments made by Tony Khan, because he was being interviewed. And he was talking to John Alba of Sports Illustrated, The Takedown, and talks about the feedback and social media and all that kind of stuff. And this is what he says about the standpoint about his feedback on the product, both as good and bad. Quote, I do like to listen to feedback from lots of people across pro wrestling, even, especially if it's constructive. It can be really helpful. I think there's a lot of times where you hear somebody say something and they say, oh, why didn't you do it this way? Or instead of going from point A to point B, then to point C, maybe off in between point A and point B, they could have added this. And so that maybe there's a good idea they can use in the future. I really do love hearing feedback from all kinds of people, from people in wrestling. Wrestlers, people who are working wrestling, and the production side are both, and fans. Fans that have never been backstage at a show in their lives, but I just love wrestling and watch it a lot, and they have great ideas. I had never been backstage at a wrestling show until I was in my 30s, and I just grew up watching it and following it and loving it and trading tapes and talking about it. There's a lot of different places and a lot of different ways you can get an idea about wrestling or that you can contribute. I just think it's really neat that there's people from literally all over the world in hundreds of countries follow the same sport, can share ideas and talk with each other. It's really cool. And with Tony Khan saying that right now, he identifies Tony Khan's trying to do a traditional product. As Tony Maglio at Hollywood Reporter said, WCW, well, the AEW is WWE is a. Let me try that again. Tony Maglio at the Hollywood Reporter made the comment correct, which is what Tony Khan's doing right now. AEW is WCW reincarnate, but I think it's also done more responsibly, where you're playing nice with the corporate suits that are giving you the programming time. You are building the company and building a profit off of it. You got that. And they're not overblowing it with the amount of pay-per-views they're doing and how they kind of put things together. Great. Fine. And I'm glad that's all being done. So, like, Tony Khan gets a lot of flack. And believe that. That's the part you got to make point of, too. I like the fact that AEW, even for some of its flaws, I like the product a good 80-90% of the time. And sure, I could say that there's certain times where I don't like some of the directions they go with certain storylines, but it doesn't matter. It's okay. But at least I'm getting storylines. At least I'm getting stories. At least I'm getting feuds. At least I'm getting a vested interest, emotional interest in who I want to go ahead and see win or lose and all that kind of stuff. I'm getting that part with AEW at the highest level. Meanwhile, MLW gives me that. TNA gives me that. NWA gives me that. Great. And that's what they're doing. And I love that part. So I'm glad to have that. That's the kind of wrestling I want. If the WWE wants to go in a different direction, they're doing that. Fine. But I do want something more. I don't want it to stay like this. Where this house show loop, I don't think there's staying power to this. Look, they're doing what they're doing right now because the checks are being cashed. Vince Russo's right about that. Netflix is paying. USA, NBC Universal's paying. CW's paying. It doesn't matter. They're getting sold out shows. If they can keep getting sold out shows, it's not going to stay like that forever. But what happens when they have the turnaround? When there's a downtime for them, there will be. It's just the way it is. That's the way the business is going to be. How are they going to react to downtime? They would have to go and change their whole model. But Triple H and Nick Khan have made it clear the business model they want to do is not Vince. They want to get away with what Vince McMahon was doing. Meanwhile, everybody else is following the path that Vince McMahon created. And that's the smart move. As for WWE, I don't know. I don't know if it's a good idea, but there's going to be a downside to it. And they're going to have to figure out that's going to be coming soon. I don't know how they're going to handle that. But they're not prepared for it. And this time after WrestleMania, we'll show that to be pretty clear. The echo chamber is real, and they're making some mistakes by not being proactive about it. But, of course, this podcast will talk about it going forward. We'll come back and do post shows for WrestleMania 41, nights 1 and 2 here this weekend on the Wrestling Podcast. Enjoy WrestleMania because wrestling needs us.